Hey everyone, Delta1 here. So I'm currently working on the Copart aveo. Yeah, and there's the Impala right there. Right now I'm in the process of putting the head back together. Well, the head's back on. It's been torqued down. Um, Now I'm just trying to get everything tightened back up, put everything back on. Normally I would cover a lot of what I'm doing, but this is actually a vehicle for my brother that moved down and needed a vehicle. So basically the engine and transmission, basically this Aveo as a whole costs as much as the engine and transmission for that. So that's not getting an engine and transmission until later next year. If I don't decide to get rid of it by then, I probably won't. I'll probably end up just keeping it until I get money again to replace that, because I'm also going on vacation next year, early next year. So I probably won't. I may have the money before I go on vacation. I may not. But at the moment, we have our Aveo, which new valves and new valve seals. I mean, overall, it's pretty good. I mean, I just cleaned the headlights. I mean, they were as bad as that, but now there's that. So, but there's not much to show on this. It's the exact same thing I did on the Hyundai. I did where I pulled the heads, pulled the valve. I will say this: the exhaust side was hell to get in, as far as getting the valve keepers to stay on. But the intakes went real smooth. So I got this Aveo for $400. Spent about $125 on parts and fluids. Yeah, about parts and fluids. So from the last thing that I was told from when this vehicle last drove is that they were told that it probably jumped time, or that it did jump time. Well, they changed the timing belt and they said that it needs a new engine because it doesn't run after changing the timing belt. I went and changed went to go and check to see if it's still in time. It was still in time when I got it. I put new heads on it. Not new heads, but I pulled the heads on it. All the exhaust valves were exhaust or intake. Intake. All of the intake valves were toast. All of them were bent. 3 out of the 8 valves were completely bent. The rest wouldn't seal. Exhausts were just changed because they came with the kit. And right now I'm just in the process of getting it back together. I've already got the head down, like I said, torqued down. The valves have been replaced. The seals, while I was in there doing that, have been replaced. So the water pump and the water, is it the one? Yeah. The water pump, the timing belt, and the timing tensioner, and the timing idler pulley were all changed when they did the timing belt. So I don't have to change any of those. I can, just in case someone, well, are you sure they changed it? Well, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Let's get in the sun. That is green. That is a green shiny bearing. That is not what comes factory on this. I think it's a brown from what Chevy told me. It's supposed to be brown from the factory or some other color. And here's the idler pulley, which I can't tell if that's new or not. I can't really tell, but it has no noise. It has all of its tension on it. It doesn't look like a bearing that has, it's supposed to have 81,000 miles on it. I have not checked that because as soon as I got it home, the first thing I did was pull the head. It took me about 3 hours to pull the head. I pulled the head on these cars, on the Aveo. The best way to pull the heads on these is to pull the head with the intake manifold still attached. Unbolt the exhaust manifold, pry the exhaust manifold back. I got to put the other nut on there, but pry the manifold back. And yes, it's crooked because there is no motor mount here. But pry it back, and when you go to pull the head, you pull up and tilt back. And remember, when you do that, the only way to actually do that without doing that is to completely pull the bracket that holds the power steering and AC compressor on there, which involves having to pull the AC compressor off, then pulling the bracket bolts, then pulling the bolts off the power steering pump. You know, this is something Chevy does a lot, where they integrate a lot of the front components into one bracket. But if you do that, that's a lot of time consuming. You can actually knock this manifold back into place once you have the head mounted down. You can knock that one, because it's only that one stud over here in the corner. It's only that one stud over there in the corner that I haven't tightened down yet, that has an issue with sliding on. You get that one on, the rest of them just slide right on. Again, all of the intake stuff has been put back into place. You don't even have to pull the intake bolts up here. Now, once you get the head off, you can then take the EGR line from here and back over here. You don't even really have to do this side. You can just unloosen the EGR over here if you don't damage the gasket all the well. But you can unbolt it here, unbolt the bolt that's behind this, slide it back slightly, and get the bolt that holds the back side down, and get the front bolts out, and you can pull the intake manifold off, replace the intake gaskets, replace the O-rings and the injectors, redo your valves on the intake side. Remember to put it back on the head before you actually put it in the car, because I'm telling you, there is no room behind this engine to get the bolts that are way down there. The bottom set of bolts, there is no way to get the one down. This is the top one that you see that's probably in the middle of the screen between the injector and the bracket for the intake. That's the top one. The one underneath is directly underneath the intake valley. So the only way to get that is to pull the intake. And not pull the in, but to pull the head. Unless you got some, you know, the mask type, you know, abilities and can get your ratchet down in there and pull it off. And that has to be done with a socket, because you can't do that with a wrench. Basically, that's as far as I've gone. I have not pulled the intake. I do have a gasket for this, but I have not pulled it. The less stuff that you have to disturb, the better. Stuff that wears, usually your intake gasket for your throttle body does not wear. Usually pulling it off is what actually damages it. Your intake gasket will leak. Your valve cover gasket. This here had oil all in each one of the tubes, so I already knew that had to be changed anyway. Like I said, I got to finish bolting those two bolts up on the exhaust manifold. I think after that, I got to put the bolts back in this, because I actually did try to, I guess I can go ahead and put that exhaust cover back on, but I did try to actually put, no, I put those bolts back in. Okay, I've already put the bolts back in that hold that bracket, but I did try to pull that bracket off and just said screw it and just use the hammer and knock that one down. So this is where we're at so far with it. I say about another hour, if I don't struggle with the timing, it'll be ready to start. I'm using Royal Purple as a oil. That's the oil that you're seeing on top of this. That's all Royal Purple. That's all there for when I go to start. Anything's better than dry. You do not want to start an engine that you just put back together dry, especially the top end. Top end takes so long to get. I did clean every single valley in it, so we're just ready to rock and roll as soon as I stop talking to you guys and go back to work. So I don't even know if I can turn this off with the gloves on. Let's see.